In today's video, I'm going to share with you a new simple idea to harvesting vermicompost. If this works, it's an absolute game changer. When I said this was simple, I wasn't kidding. All you need is a drill with a 10mm drill bit or about a 1/2 inch drill bit. You also need a bucket. Now the size of the bucket really depends on the size of your worm bins, and that'll make more sense in just a little while. But first things first, all we need to do is drill some holes into our bucket. And there's no genius way to do this, just go ahead, drill some holes. Let's take a look inside the vermicomposting shed. I do have some very large vermicomposting bins. I'm using plasterers buckets type thing. I've got 3 of them in there. I've got a 4th one as well, but that just can't fit in here. I also have a worm tower, and this solution is not for that. Let's go and have a look and see how the worms are doing. It is winter time still, and I'm sure a lot of you want to see how they're getting on. So let's take a look. This back bin was the first one that I put in, and it's the first one I've been feeding. And I actually have done a bit of a harvest. Take a look at it over here. Some beautiful, beautiful crumbly vermicompost. I put that through my rotary sifter, and the stuff on the left here is actually what was left over, and I added in some more cardboard. It was a little bit muddy, and there's also some bits that still needed to break down, like this corn cob. Doesn't look like a corn cob, but I promise you it is. And yeah, there's a lot of muddy clumps, so it was a little bit moist, and by adding in paper, this should break it down a bit more. I put it back in the bin so that the worms can move across over here, and that kind of started off my idea for what I'm trying to do. One of the traditional ways of harvesting vermicompost, which is nice and easy, and honestly it works. It does have a few little drawbacks. I think that my method will be a bit easier, but one of the methods is to stop feeding on one side of your bin and let the worms migrate over to the side that they are going to be feeding on. So for example, over here, I stopped feeding over here first, and then I carried on feeding a little bit more over here. I've actually stopped feeding completely in this bin because I'm going to be harvesting the whole lot. But I still have a problem. I still need to separate the worms. Now, the worms are mostly gone from this side because that has been there for a bit longer. This side over here, you'll see loads of worms, and yeah, they're looking lovely. Lots of baby ones there as well, lots of eggs too. It is still cold, it is winter, so they're not going to necessarily be as active as they would normally be. The compost is a little moist, but we'll fix that over time. But plenty worms in here. This is a very healthy bin. Now my idea basically capitalizes on that whole concept of stopping feeding in one area and only feeding in the other. Let's try this method with this bin. This is the second bin I started when I put this all together in the shed, and let's see how it's going. This side here, it's got a lot of cardboard at the moment because I am trying to dry it out a bit, and it is working. So there shouldn't be a whole lot of worms. They're hanging around in this thing, but I stopped feeding on this side quite a while back. Still are some worms down the bottom there. It's also quite cold still. I can feel it when I'm putting my hands in here, so the worms aren't going to be as active as they would be. I know that there will be a few more worms on this side because this was the area I last was feeding. So we just dig down a little bit. Yeah, we can definitely see a lot more worms in here. And also can see some worm eggs. That's nice to see. But yeah, the worms are chowing down. The bins smell great, so I'm not worried about overfeeding. I do put quite a bit of food in here, but the worms seem to take care of it quite quickly. But yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to use the bucket method in this bin, and we'll come back to it, of course, probably in a month's time to see how it's worked. It is very simple. I'm sure you can get the idea already of what I'm going to be doing. But we're just going to make a space here. Let's pull all of this away. There's quite a few worms down the bottom there. Wow, that is cold. And it's quite muddy down there as well, quite moist. But basically we're just going to make a hole for the bucket to go into. That's going to go down there. And at the bottom we're going to add some bedding. So basically it's like a mini worm bin inside here, but we're just going to add some bedding, and that's not really for any other reason than to absorb some of the moisture in here. And then what we're going to do is we take our compost and we stick it on top. So this will be mostly finished that you're going to be adding in here, but actually I don't think it really matters if you don't mind waiting a little while. Let them use this as the worm bin. They'll break it down. You could even feed this bin or this bucket if you wanted to, but they're going to break this all down, and then once they have, they're going to leave the bucket through the holes that we've created, because they're going to be trying to find some new food. Then all you need to do is you have your finished compost in here, pick up the bucket, take it out and use it where you need it. I think this method will be a lot simpler than what I was doing previously, but only time will tell. I'm also going to put some bedding on the top. And don't worry about the amount of bedding that's going in here. I will actually moisten this down a little bit, but don't worry too much about that, because when you do sift it later, if you do sift compost, all that stuff will come out and you'll be left with that lovely finished vermicompost. I'll be using a similar idea to this out in my actual garden, in my raised beds later on in the year. And that isn't my idea. I've seen that online and it's partly contributed to what I'm doing over here. Let's see how this goes. I'll come back to this in about a month's time and we'll see if it's actually worked the way I'm envisioning in my mind. I'll be needing the vermicompost in the next 2 months because I'll be potting up all my chili plants, and I definitely need some of this to be added into my compost mix. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Until then, stay spicy.